Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're venturing into the world of advertising. It's just everywhere, isn't it?
It really is. Kind of inescapable.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about how much it shapes things, often, without us even noticing.
Yeah.
So we pulled together some really interesting material to explore that.
It's definitely worth digging into. I mean, think about this. Some estimates say we see somewhere between 4,000 and, get this, 10,000 ads every single day.
Wow, 10,000, that's a lot.
It is. And it's not just noise. Advertising has these core goals, right? It's way more than just trying to get us to buy something immediately.
Right. Like first they need to make us aware something even exists.
Exactly. Awareness first. Then it's about persuasion, convincing you that you need it or want it.
And showing how it's different from all the other options out there.
Yep, differentiation. Plus, keeping the brand top of mind, that's retention. And then ultimately driving the actual sale.
Okay, but what's the engine behind all this?
Yeah.
The fundamental deal.
Well, it's this really interesting economic setup. Advertisers are basically paying media platforms, TV, websites, social media, you name it, for access.
Access to us.
Our eyeballs.
To our attention, yeah. And crucially, our data. That's the main reason so much online content seems free.
Ah, right. Because we're not paying with money.
We're paying with our attention, our data. We, the audience, are often the product being sold.
Okay, that really makes you stop and think, how are we paying for all that free stuff we watch or read?
It's a hidden cost, in a way.
And it definitely adds to that feeling of just being bombarded. Like digital spam half the time. Why does it feel so much like spam?
Well, several things feed into that. First, just the sheer volume, like we said, thousands a day is overwhelming.
Yeah, you just tune out eventually. Or try to.
And then there's the repetition.
Yeah.
Seeing the same ad or the same brand over and over.
Yeah.
It's designed to stick, but it can feel annoying.
Totally. And the tech now is so pervasive, right? Push notifications, those personalized ads. Exactly. Retargeting, where an ad for something you looked at once follows you everywhere online. It feels invasive.
It really does. It's all part of this attention economy they talk about. Everyone fighting for a sliver of our focus.
Precisely. It's aggressive.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that happen where, some product just keeps showing up in my feed again and again. And eventually I actually start thinking, maybe I should check that out, even if I wasn't interested at first.
Oh, yeah, that's super common. And that's the paradox, isn't it?
How so?
Well, even though we often perceive it as intrusive spam, the fact is, advertising works. It's incredibly effective overall.
Despite us feeling annoyed by it.
Sometimes even because of it, weirdly enough. A big part of it is just omnipresence. Ads aren't just on TV or websites anymore. They're everywhere.
Following us around.
Yeah, across different devices, different platforms, even into the physical world sometimes. And a lot of that is driven by programmatic advertising.
Okay, what's that exact?
Think of it like a super fast automated auction. Ad spaces are bought and sold in real time, matching specific ads to specific users based on their online profiles, browsing habits, data.
So even if I'm trying to ignore them, my brain is still kind of clocking these brands. Subconsciously.
That seems to be the case. Yeah. Our subconscious logs this stuff. Think about hate walking an ad, the one that drives you absolutely nuts. Even that negative feeling can actually cement the brand in your memory. And there's also this thing called familiarity bias.
Familiarity bias?
Oh.
Meaning we just like things we recognize.
Basically, yeah. We tend to develop a preference for things simply because they feel familiar, even if the initial exposure wasn't all that positive.
Oh, like that old head-on. Applied directly to the forehead.
Exactly. Perfect example.
It was so annoying, so repetitive, but everybody knew it.
It worked. It shows how repetition breeds familiarity, and familiarity can somehow lead to, well, not necessarily trust, but recognition and maybe even a slight preference down the line.
Wild. So it's not just repetition, though. There's deeper psychology involved.
Oh, absolutely. Advertisers use a whole toolkit of psychological techniques. It goes way beyond just showing you the ad lots of times.
Okay, like what? Give us some examples.
Well, think about simple things like colors, music, even just seeing human faces in ads. They're all chosen very carefully to nudge our emotions.
How so with colors?
Well, color psychology is a big one. Red, for instance, often creates a sense of urgency or excitement. You see it in sales signs all the time.
Right. Limited time offer in bright red.
Exactly. Blue, on the other hand, tends to evoke feelings of trust, stability, reliability.
Like banks or tech companies.
You got it. And green is heavily associated with health, nature, eco-friendliness.
Makes sense. What else?
Then there's social proof. Using testimonials from real people or endorsements from influencers we trust or admire.
Because we want to fit in or we trust their judgment.
Precisely. It taps into that herd instinct.
Yeah.
And scarcity, only 3 left, or sale ends Friday. That plays on our fear of missing out, FOMO.
It definitely feels like being steered sometimes, maybe even manipulated.
Well, and here's the really interesting part. These psychological nudges often work even when we know they're being used on us.
Wait, really? Even if I know they're using scarcity, it still affects me?
Often, yes. Our emotional reaction can happen faster than our logical brain kicks in to analyze it. The feeling comes first.
Huh. Okay, so we covered colors.
Yeah.
What about faces and music?
Right, so mirror neurons are fascinating. When we see someone in an ad looking happy or satisfied using a product,
We subconsciously mirror that feeling a bit.
exactly, it can create the subtle positive emotional link in our own brain. And music, well, that's a direct line to emotion, isn't it? The right soundtrack can completely change how we feel about what we're seeing.
Totally. And storytelling. I feel like ads have gotten really good at telling stories.
Absolutely. Storytelling is incredibly powerful. Ads that weave a narrative, especially an emotional one. Think about those John Lewis Christmas ads in the UK.
Oh, yeah. They're famous. Always get you right in the feels. Like little movies.
Exactly. They build a really strong emotional connection that goes way beyond just the product itself.
Okay, what about pricing tricks?
Anchoring is a common one. You show a really expensive option first.
And then the slightly less expensive one seems like a bargain.
Right. Even if it's still pricey on its own, compared to the anchor price, it looks reasonable. It shapes your perception of value.
Wow, it really is all carefully crafted. It reminds me of that movie, The Truman Show. Remember how they awkwardly shove product placements into his conversations?
Haha, yeah. That's a chef's pal. It was so blatant.
Right. How does that compare to what we see now? It feels smoother.
It's definitely more subtle, usually. That movie was satire, of course. But instead of clumsy in-show placements like that, we now have the whole universe of influencer marketing.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
On Instagram, YouTube, TikTok.
Everywhere. Reality shows like Love Island are full of it, too.
Yeah.
The line between a genuine recommendation from someone you follow and a paid ad is, well, it's gotten incredibly blurry for most people.
Yeah. It's hard to tell sometimes. It's amazing how much things have changed. Speaking of change, let's rewind a bit. Where did all this advertising stuff even come from? It wasn't always like this, right?
Oh, not at all. Advertising, in some form, is ancient. Think about town criers shouting about goods for sale.
Okay, like simple announcements.
Yeah. Or merchants carving signs. Egyptians used papyrus for sales messages. Romans painted slogans on walls, basically early billboards for political campaigns or businesses.
So really basic stuff. When did it start to get more organized?
The big shift came with the Industrial Revolution. Mass production meant you suddenly needed mass demand.
Ah, got to sell all that stuff being made in factories.
Exactly. So newspapers became crucial, carrying printed ads, posters became common, mail order catalogs started appearing, advertising grew up alongside mass markets.
Okay, and then came radio and TV. That must have been another huge leap. The golden age, right?
Absolutely. Mid-20th century. That's when psychology really started playing a much bigger, more conscious role in advertising.
How so?
Well, radio created this intimate connection, and early radio ads were often woven right into the shows, like soap operas.
Call that because soap companies sponsored them.
Literally, yes. Sponsored by companies like Procter & Gamble. Then TV brought visuals, and jingles became, well, you could almost call them cultural glue.
Catchy tunes everyone knew.
Exactly. Think of I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke. That ad was huge, way bigger than just selling soda. It captured a feeling, a moment.
Yeah, that one's iconic.
Yeah.
And then the internet happened. Everything changed again.
Totally. A massive disruption. The very first online banner ad was apparently in 1994. Pretty basic, just asking people to click.
Ghost bait from the start.
Kind of. Then in the 2000s, you got search engine ads. Google AdWords changed the game. Email spam exploded, unfortunately. And then, of course, social media arrived and turned everything upside down again.
And now, it feels like it's all about algorithms and AI.
Pretty much. We're deep in an era dominated by AI, complex algorithms, and our personal data being the main currency that makes the whole system work.
It's come an incredibly long way. Makes you wonder about prehistoric ads. Maybe cave paintings of the best berries.
Maybe. It's funny you mention older ads, though. That nostalgia factor is real. What's the earliest ad you remember? For me, maybe those Zoop Balls plates. Those animal faces.
Oh, Zoop balls, yeah. Or maybe skip it, or clap on, clap off.
Yes. See? They stick in your head. They become these shared little cultural artifacts.
Yeah, they really do. Now, it's obvious these marketing tricks aren't just for selling toys or plates. We see them used elsewhere, right? Like in politics.
Oh, definitely. Political campaigns use the exact same playbook. Branding, slogans, hitting emotional buttons, repeating messages.
And that micro-targeting thing you mentioned earlier.
Yep. Using data to tailor messages very, very specifically to different groups of voters. It's standard practice now.
Which, raises some concerns about potential manipulation or misinformation, especially when emotions are involved.
That's a huge and ongoing debate, absolutely. The ethics around political advertising are complex.
So let's talk about the money side. Just how big is this advertising industry?
It's enormous. Global ad spending in 2024, projections are over $900 billion.
Billion. With a B.
Wow. Yeah. And the biggest players taking the largest slices of that pie are the tech giants, Google, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Amazon. They dominate the digital ad space.
And that massive spending, it funds so much of what we see online, right? Content creators, apps.
Absolutely. Creators and influencers rely heavily on sponsorships, affiliate links where they get a cut of sales, and ad revenue sharing from platforms like YouTube.
And that freemium model for apps. Free basic version, pay for more features.
That's often supported by ads shown to the free users, which brings us back to ad blockers.
Right. People use them to avoid the tracking, the annoying autoplay videos, the banners. I use one sometimes.
Lots of people do. They definitely make browsing cleaner, maybe faster. But there's a flip side.
Like,
well, they can block useful stuff sometimes. They hurt creators, especially smaller ones, who depend on that ad money. And sometimes, sites react by putting up paywalls if they detect an ad blocker.
Yeah. It's a tricky balance. It makes you think, how do you feel about ad blockers? Do you mind seeing ads if it means getting free content? It's a constant negotiation, I guess.
It really is. There's no easy answer for everyone.
So let's loop back to some examples. We touched on politics, but how else do these ad principles show up in culture?
Well, in politics, like we said, it's often about fear, identity, keeping it simple. That Daisy ad from '64 is a classic, terrifying example linking Barry Goldwater to nuclear war. Very subtly.
Wow, powerful stuff.
And more recently, the Trump campaign in 2016 was famous for its really intense use of Facebook microtargeting, sending thousands of different ad variations to tiny segments of the electorate.
Hyper-personalized political messaging, and then there are influencers.
Right, where entertainment and advertising just completely merge. Is Emma Chamberlain just chatting about her day, or is she selling her coffee brand?
Or Mr. Beast making chocolate. Logan Paul pushing Prime.
Exactly. Their whole persona becomes the marketing vehicle, the personality is the brand, and the brand sells the product. It's very seamless, often.
And then there's the Super Bowl. Those ads are practically an event themselves.
Totally. People actually look forward to them, talk about them the next day. It's peak advertising as entertainment.
Yeah. Budweiser's Clydesdales, Apple's 1984 ad, Doritos even did those user-generated ones for a while.
Memorable stuff. It makes you think, what's the last ad you really remember? And why did it stick with you? Was it funny, emotional, shocking?
That's a good question. I have to think about that. Okay, we mentioned legal stuff briefly, but let's dig into the ethics and the loopholes a bit more.
Sure. So there are truth in advertising laws, technically. Ads are supposed to be factually accurate.
Supposed to be.
Yeah, there's wiggle room. Puffery, for example, subjective claims like world's best coffee, that's generally allowed.
Okay, what about influencers?
Endorsement guidelines say they need to disclose paid posts, usually with hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored. But enforcement can be spotty.
Right.
And defamation laws mean you can't just lie about a competitor. If you do comparative ads like, our brand is better than brand X because, you need proof for those claims.
But there are ways around being totally upfront. Loopholes.
Oh, definitely. Vague claims are common, may help support immune health. What does support even mean, really?
Good point. It sounds good, but it's fuzzy.
Exactly. Fine print is another classic results not typical, hidden at the bottom. Misleading terms, too, like using natural when it doesn't mean much legally, unlike organic, which has stricter definitions.
Didn't Vitamin Water get sued over something like that?
Yep. Big lawsuit arguing their marketing implied health benefits despite the drink having a ton of sugar. It highlighted that gap between marketing spin and reality.
So there's this constant tension between persuading and misleading. Okay, let's zoom out again. What are the bigger impacts of all this advertising on us as individuals and maybe on society as a whole?
Okay, so on the micro, the individual level, it definitely contributes to attention fragmentation. It's harder to focus with constant interruptions.
Tell me about it.
It fuels impulse buying. Seeing something desirable triggers that buy now reflex. And lifestyle inflation, always feeling you need the next bigger, better thing shown in ads.
Keeping up with the Joneses
Yeah,
digitally.
exactly. It can also create a distorted self-image, comparing ourselves to the often unrealistic ideals in ads, beauty, wealth, success. And it blurs the line between genuine needs and manufactured wants.
That's huge. Do I really need this, or did an ad just convince me I do? Try counting the branded items you interact with before lunch sometime. It's probably shocking.
It really is. Think about slogans. Red Bull gives you wings, just do it. They get lodged in our heads. FOMO, consumer fatigue, even retail therapy ads tap into all of that.
Okay, so that's the individual. What about the macro level? Society.
Well, the sheer pervasiveness leads to the commercialization of culture. Everything becomes a potential ad space or branding opportunity. It can compromise news media. Outlets relying on ad dollars might hesitate to run stories critical of big advertisers. There's the whole data privacy trade-off we keep talking about.
Giving up privacy for personalized ads or free services.
Right. And arguably, the constant push for consumerism has massive environmental consequences, resource depletion, waste. It fuels a debt culture. Advertising doesn't just sell products, it sells values. It shapes what society deems important. What gets visibility issues like diversity, sustainability, mental health often get framed or ignored based on commercial interests.
Like fast fashion's micro seasons, constantly pushing new trends.
Perfect example, driven entirely by marketing to create constant demand.
It's quite heavy when you think about it that way. And the methods are getting even more advanced, right? You mentioned neuromarketing. What's that about?
Yeah, neuromarketing uses neuroscience tools to see how advertising really affects us, bypassing what we say we think.
Like reading minds.
Not quite mind reading, but getting closer to understanding subconscious reactions. They use things like facial coding to analyze tiny expressions for emotional responses.
Wow.
Eye tracking to see exactly where people look on an ad or website. Even EEG brain scans or fMRI to measure brain activity when viewing ads.
So they're literally watching our brains react to commercials.
In some research settings, yes. It's about finding the most effective triggers on a biological level.
That feels intense. And it ties into behavioral design.
Exactly. Using those insights and psychological principles to design interfaces and experiences that nudge us towards certain actions.
Like the one left in stock messages.
Yep, that creates urgency. Or default tip amounts that subtly suggest a higher percentage. Even the personalized thumbnails Netflix shows you, they test which image is most likely to make you click based on your history.
It's all about nudging. But sometimes it feels less like a nudge and more like a shove or even a trick. Dark patterns.
Right. Dark patterns are deliberately deceptive design choices. Things like confirm shaming, making you feel bad for opting out, like, no thanks, I don't like saving money.
I hate those.
Or making it incredibly difficult to find the unsubscribe button. Hidden opt-outs. Then there's gamified purchases, loot boxes, spin-the-wheel discounts that feel like a game but are designed to make you spend.
Triggering that dopamine hit.
Exactly. And fear-based selling, protect your family now. Or those fake countdown timers in mobile games creating false urgency. Classic dark patterns.
They really are everywhere once you start noticing them.
Yeah.
It all seems linked to this idea of surveillance capitalism. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. Shoshana Zuboff coined the term. It basically describes an economic system built on collecting vast amounts of personal data, what we click, where we go, what we search for, even what we say near devices.
Wait, even what we say?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Smart speakers, phones, the data can be collected. It's all fed into algorithms to predict our behavior.
And then sell those predictions to advertisers.
Exactly. So they can target us with hyper-personalized ads. That feeling of talking about, say, hiking boots and then suddenly seeing ads for them everywhere?
Yeah, that happens all the time. Creepy or convenient.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It relies on turning our lived experiences into data points for profit. Mouse hovering, typing patterns, location, it can all be part of the profile.
It's a lot to take in. But advertising isn't all manipulation and surveillance.
Right.
Sometimes it can be.
Good.
Creative.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole subculture around appreciating ads as art. And artists often critique the industry itself. Think Banksy's work commenting on consumerism.
Or Adbusters magazine. Their spoofs and Buy Nothing Day.
Exactly. And some commercials are genuinely seen as cinematic achievements. That Guinness Surfer ad is visually incredible. Apple's 1984 is legendary.
Right. They transcend just selling something.
They become cultural moments. And you know that movie They Live? with the special sunglasses that reveal the hidden messages like obey and consume in ads.
Yeah. Creepy movie.
It's a great metaphor for that underlying layer of persuasion, even if it's exaggerated there.
Okay, so art and critique exist.
Mm-hmm.
What about when ads go global? How do they handle different cultures?
That's crucial. Cultural adaptation is key. You can't just translate an American ad and expect it to work in Japan or Brazil.
Why not?
Values, humor, taboos, visuals, they all differ wildly. What's funny in one culture might be offensive in another. Colors can have different meanings.
So they have to tailor it.
Definitely. There's this term globalization. Keep the global brand message consistent, but adapt the execution, the flavor, for the local market.
Could you give an example?
McDonald's is a classic one. Their core brand is global, but their ads in, say, India will emphasize family and vegetarian options much more than they might in the US, where convenience and fun might be the focus.
Makes sense. It's a balancing act. So looking forward, what's next for advertising? Where is it all heading?
Well, AI is going to play an even bigger role. Think AI-generated ad creative personalized in real time for whoever's watching.
Wow. Ads made just for me, on the fly.
Potentially. Virtual product placement is another thing. Imagine brands being digitally inserted into shows or movies you stream, maybe even swapped out depending on the viewer.
Seriously. So we might see different brands in the same scene.
It's technically possible. VR and the metaverse could open up totally new immersive ad experiences. And there's a push towards zero-party data.
Zero party? What's that?
That's data consumers give willingly and directly to a brand, maybe through quizzes or preference centers, in exchange for something like personalization or discounts. It's seen as a response to privacy concerns over third-party tracking.
So more explicit data sharing.
Maybe. And expect more hyper-local, hyper-personalized stuff, like walking past a store and getting a targeted offer pinged to your phone right then. 20% off boots just for you right now.
Okay, that sounds very big. Future is now.
Yeah.
This has been incredibly insightful, really peeling back the layers. It makes you look at everything differently. So let's circle back. Armed with all this, what should we be asking ourselves?
Yeah, it really comes down to building more awareness, like psychological and maybe even moral self-awareness. Ask yourself, am I really choosing what I want? Or am I being nudged, maybe more than I realize?
Good question.
How much does advertising shape my values, my ideas about what beauty is, or success, or happiness?
Have I just accepted some ad messages as truth without really questioning them?
Exactly. And maybe ask, if I stripped away all the marketing, all the cool branding, would I still admire this company or want this product?
Those are deep questions. And you had a practical exercise, too.
Yeah, something you can try right away. Next time an ad catches your eye, one you find engaging or interesting, just pause. Ask yourself,
Okay.
what emotion is this trying to make me feel? What desire or maybe what fear is it tapping into?
Is that my desire, or do they just plant it there?
Precisely. Just taking that moment to analyze the mechanism can be really powerful.
That's a great actionable tip.
Yeah.
Any other questions for ongoing reflection?
Yeah, maybe keep these in mind day to day. Which brands do I actually trust? And why? Is it the product or the marketing?
Good one.
Do I feel different after seeing certain ads? Am I being entertained or am I being influenced? Or both? What role does my identity, who I think I am, or who I want to be, play in what I buy, or even what I share online?
Really digging into our own psychology around this stuff.
Totally. And maybe just observe more consciously. How many logos do you actually see in an hour online? What was the last thing you bought that you know was influenced by an ad?
Do I associate certain brands with feelings? Like, does Coke feel like happiness because of the ads?
Right. Would I enjoy something less if it wasn't seen as cool or trendy? And notice how the ads on your social feed probably look pretty different from your friend's feed. Why?
So many angles to consider. It's way more than just background noise.
Way more. Advertising is basically the language of capitalism, you know? It's how culture tells stories, but always stories with an agenda.
An agenda to shape who we are, what we want.
Exactly. And it can be beautiful or manipulative or nostalgic or really quite insidious. It's the art of suggestion in a world overflowing with choice.
But being more aware gives us more agency.
That's the hope. The more aware you are of how it works, the techniques, the goals, the more power you have to navigate it consciously, make your own choices, and not just be swept along.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. Thanks for shedding so much light on this force that's, well, everywhere.
Glad we could explore it. It's definitely something worth thinking about.